Trash, Part 3, Chapter 5. Olivia still. They asked me to write all of this, but maybe Gardo needs to say things as well. I noticed that Gardo, had stood up and moved behind me. I stood up too. Nobody seemed quite sure what to do. Miss Olivia? Said the man. Yes, I said. He blinked. Sit. Please, sit. Then he said something in his own language, and the guards helped him to the chair. He was perspiring heavily. I could see moisture all over his forehead, and he found a handkerchief and mopped first his brow, and then his face, and then his neck. At last he sat back and smiled. They told me your name, he said. Thank you so much for visiting me. I hope it hasn't been too dreadful for you. It was clearly an effort for him to speak. He seemed very sick to me, far too sick to be in prison. I couldn't think of anything to say. I do not recognize your name, he continued, and nobody would tell me the reason for paying me this honor. Please, forgive me. As you can see, you've come when I'm extremely weak, but I never say no. I never say no. The man was not simply weak, he was dying. I don't know how I knew, but I was certain of it. His skin was drawn tight, and breathing was so hard. There was a large growth under his jaw, and he seemed to be in pain. Everything was an effort. Sitting still was an effort, and lifting his head was an effort. I saw him wince as he adjusted his position. He smiled at me again, and I saw his skull clearly through the skin. This was Gardo's grandfather? But something didn't seem right. The man had not even greeted him. I'm pleased to meet you, he said. I will tell you anything you want to know. What is your brief? I still hadn't spoken, and I wasn't sure that I could. I wasn't sure what my voice would sound like if I did. I moistened my lips and said, I'm so sorry to have, I couldn't think what to say, to have disturbed you. But Gardo, I looked round, and Gardo was standing there, still as a post. He had not greeted the man, and the man had still not greeted him. Believe me, said the old man, a visitor is always welcome. Without visitors, I would have gone mad, and they come in fits and starts. I can go several weeks with nobody. Then it is as if I'm back in fashion. I have 2 in a day. You, my dear, are the first face for some time. And your boy, this is Gardo, I said. You know each other, don't you? The old man looked at me and then at Gardo. He seemed puzzled, and he smiled. You do know each other, I said. It's actually Gardo who wants to see you, about your house. The man said something in his own language, and Gardo replied softly. The man spoke again, and Gardo said nothing. Miss Olivia, said the old man, smiling. He closed his eyes and waited. I'm sure your boy is a good boy, and I am delighted that he's brought you here. But to answer your question, he paused again, this time for breath. To answer your question, no. I am not acquainted with him, and I have never seen him before. As for a house, I have no house. I have almost nothing. It was all taken from me a long time ago. Gardo, you said this was your grandfather, I said. Gardo was looking away. I don't understand, I said. You told me, sir, I'm a bit confused. Yes, so am I. The reason I came was, I just said it. Gardo wanted to see you about your house. I was going over Gardo's story in my mind, and the confusion was getting worse and making me panic. Was it the wrong prisoner? There had been confusion over the number. Were we sitting with the wrong man? Olivia, you don't know who I am, do you? You don't know anything about me. No, I said. I have no idea. He said something to Gardo in his own language, and Gardo answered softly. The man drew breath sharply and closed his eyes. He says you paid 10,000 pesos to get to me. He is very generous with your money, I think. The going rate, Miss Olivia, is 1,500. They got 5,000 from a journalist once, but they kept him waiting 3 days, and it was coming up to the Zapanta election. I don't understand, I said. Do you know Gardo or not? No. Then he has used you to bribe his way to me. The money you paid bribes the administration here. The guards will bring people to me, and like I said, there are often people wanting to see me, and I thought you must be one of them. The prison authorities make a good living from me, I think. But I don't, I still don't understand. Why do people come to see you? Gardo, you're not going to explain this? Gardo said something in his own language, and there was a short, abrupt exchange. Gardo seemed to be pleading, but the old man interrupted. No, he said. No, we speak in English with Miss Olivia. Miss Olivia has paid for this interview. We will say everything in English. He looked at me. Your boy is playing a game, and he wants to ask me questions on his own. He wants to speak to me privately, and I have said no. I can see you are bewildered, and I am also very surprised. Please. He bent forward in his chair, and I thought for a terrible moment he was going to be sick. He leaned on his stick and seemed to be waiting for the pain to pass. He said something to Gardo in his own language again. Gardo took a cup from the table and filled it from my water bottle. He handed it to the old man, but the old man was shaking. He got a hand to the cup, but Gardo had to keep hold of it and feed it gently up to his mouth. The man clutched the boy's arm. I'm sorry, he said. He drank again. I was saying, if I tell you who I am, Miss Olivia, and how I come to be here, things may become clearer. I am very near death now, as you can see. Do you know they still will not let me out, as if I could harm a fly? He smiled at me. You know my name, but it means nothing to you. There's no reason why it should. The pain had passed and he was relaxing. The reason I am in this jail is that I brought corruption charges against Senator Regis Zapanta 35 years ago. Do you know Senator Zapanta? No, I said. He is a big man in this country, our trusted vice president. He is always in the papers for one thing or another. You are a tourist and you are passing through. You would not know these names. Gardo here will know the name and even the face. Is that true, Gardo? Gardo was nodding. Everyone knows him. In this city, he is a very big man. You don't read the papers? I shook my head. Nor do I anymore. Once a month, if I'm lucky. They starve me of the news, and perhaps it's for the best. Waiting for change has exhausted me. It's probably best I hear so little. I was never important, Olivia. I served as a small officer only in the east quarter of the city. Humble ranks. You won't know the system, so I won't. Oh, it doesn't even matter. What matters is that 40 years ago, I came upon information that Senator Zapanta had spirited away $30 million of international aid money. It was a package of grants with the United Nations leading, and it was to build hospitals and schools. They called it seed corn money. Now, seed corn money is very important in the way these things work. When a country receives such money, it is a condition that a proportion of the money is matched by the government and by other donor countries too. In this case, that 30 million was going to be added to by our government here and by, private investment. The big banks were involved. So that 30 would, we hoped, turn to 60 or 70. 70 million would have changed the city, Miss Olivia, at that time. But no schools or hospitals were ever built, and the city stayed poor. Senator Zapanta stole it, and I tried to prove he stole it. It never went to court because the senator quickly countersued. It seemed he had many more friends than I and infinitely more power. I ended up charged and prosecuted. I was convicted. My appeals were laughed at. Life imprisonment I got. And he paused again and winced with pain. I think the sentence is nearly over.